Hello everybody, in this video I'm going to show you how I got a full-time job working for Amazon. We're going to talk about everything, how I applied to the job, how was the online assessments, how to prepare for the coding interviews, how to prepare for the behavioral interviews. So make sure you watch the whole video because I'm going to share with you a lot of valuable tips that you can use to get a job at a prestigious FAANG company like Amazon. So I just entered my third and final year at university, and of course I was thinking about my future, and I always wanted to get a job at a FAANG company. So what I did was research when all of these companies like Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, and this is the first tip that I have for you: apply as early as possible, because for most of these companies the applications are rolling, which is basically first come, first served. If you apply early, like I did, the competition is going to be smaller and your chances are going to be bigger, because they have a limited number of positions, and so the sooner you apply, the less competition you have and the bigger the chances of you getting the job are. Now, of course, I didn't put all my eggs into one basket. I applied to 10, 15 companies like this, but Amazon were the first to respond to me after like 2 or 3 weeks. And in the same time that I was applying to these companies, I already starting to prepare for the coding interviews themselves, because it's super important to take your time and get in shape, just like an MMA fighter who's been fighting for 10 years professionally. But if they take a break for like a half a year, they still need to do 2 or 3 months of preparation in order to be ready for a fight. So even if you consider yourself very good at algorithms and data structures, like I think I was because of my background in competitive programming, I highly recommend practicing for 1 or 2 months, especially if you haven't solved any coding question in a while and you are rusty. Back then I used LeetCode because they have a lot of coding questions and you can write code on their website, submit it and see if it's accepted or not. But the problem with LeetCode, unfortunately, was that it didn't say anything about code quality. And if you also look at the discussions tab, you can see many more people who have accepted solutions, but the quality of their code, unfortunately, is below the standards of a FAANG company. You see a lot of variable names that are not suggestive at all, like X, Y, array. You see a lot of duplicate code, so they didn't think about the design of the code. They didn't think about taking that duplicate code and refactor it into a nice function which you can call then multiple times. And you see a lot of long, overcomplicating code with useless arrays or variables. It's clear that they didn't use the Lego blocks method, and so it's super easy for you to get tricked into thinking that this is the way you should code in an interview and it's going to get passed. And a lot of my students who were preparing for FAANG coding interviews were learning a lot of bad coding practices from LeetCode. And that's why we decided to build our own platform which evaluates the quality of your code and tells you exactly where your code needs to be tweaked in order to actually pass a coding interview. And now they're landing their job much faster. But back then, fortunately, because of my background in competitive programming and all the Olympiads, I knew how to discern between bad quality and good quality code. So I applied to all of these companies. Amazon were the first to respond. They sent me an email to schedule my first online assessment. The online assessment is a test that you take online. You basically have 1 hour to solve 2 coding questions and you need to submit them in a platform like HackerRank, this was my case, and they will automatically evaluate your solutions if they produce the correct outputs and are fast enough for the input test cases and come back to you via email with a result. And in my case, the result was positive and I moved on to the next stage. This was a work simulation assessment. It's a pretty interesting test where you are given hypothetical but critical situations in which you should make the optimal decisions for the company. For example, one software engineer from your team got sick and they cannot work on the product anymore. But you need to deliver that product to your customer by a specific deadline. So what do? You have option A, you can deliver only 75% of the product and respect the deadline. You have option B, you can take 1 more week past the deadline and deliver the whole product. Option C, you can take a developer from another team to replace the sick one and make sure you make the product in time. Or option number D, you can have a call with your customer, discuss the situation and get to an agreement together. The purpose of this assessment is to see how much you value the company's culture. What you should do is study Amazon's leadership principles beforehand. You can find them online on their official website. You can write them down on a paper, that's exactly what I did, and you should use them in order to answer all of these questions. In the example I've given you, C was not a correct answer because you have the principle of frugality, using as few resources as possible to solve a problem. And so getting a developer from another team to solve this problem is not the optimal solution. So please be serious about this assessment because it's as important as the technical ones. After passing this assessment, I qualified to the final stage, which consisted of 3 back-to-back 1-hour interviews with actual Amazon software developers. They were held on Amazon Chime, which is their own video service, and in each of them, in the first 15 minutes, I was asked a couple of behavioral questions, and the other 45 minutes were for me to solve a coding interview question live. To prepare for the behavioral part, I first studied Amazon's leadership principles, and on top of that, I searched online for the most frequently asked behavioral questions, and using the STAR template, which stands for Situation, Task, Action, Result, that I found online to be the best template for storytelling, I created scripts based on those 5 life stories of mine in order to answer a wide variety of possible behavioral questions. And then what I did was practice those scripts in front of the mirror, with my friends, in front of a camera, so I can deliver them flawlessly during the interview. I really like the coding questions that they've given me. They were super fun to solve, and I actually never seen any of them before on the internet. I don't remember the question exactly, but it was something about Amazon users, their shopping carts, some products and relations between them. So I could figure out that it was a graph algorithm, and it was actually Breadth First Search, or BFS, which is one of my most favorite algorithms. So when you're solving a coding question during an interview, what you want to do is this. First of all, read the problem statement carefully. Take your time, you can take 2 minutes or so to make sure you understand the problem, you understand the examples, and you ask clarifying questions and think about edge cases. In this way, you will show important soft skills like communication and paying attention to details, and interviewers actually give you vague problem statements on purpose to test you for these skills. Next, you want to make sure that you're taking the interviewer through your thinking process and don't just spit out a solution out of nowhere. The Master Key Trio technique is a great way to do this, either by starting off with a brute force approach or solving some small examples on paper, and then slowly scaling up your solution and optimizing it using a slick technique or a data structure in order to get to the optimal approach. Then you are going to write the code, communicating to the interviewer exactly why you wrote every line of code and why you did it in that specific way. And when you finished, make sure to not just stop thinking that it's over, I got the job in the sack. No. Write test cases, focusing especially on edge cases, and dry run those on your code along with the interviewer. This will not only prove important soft skills, but you will also find bugs in your code which you are going to fix. And in the end, you discuss the time and space complexity of your algorithm and what you can possibly improve to your code in the future. So after the interviews, you can imagine I was refreshing my email every day, and finally, after 1 month, I received a notification. I saw it was from Amazon. I remember feeling so anxious, excited, but very anxious. And I remember opening that email and covering it with my hand because I knew it's probably the first word in the email that's gonna tell me if I passed or not. And so I tried to look at it letter by letter, and I uncovered the first letter and it was a C, and I was like, okay, this is good, C-O-N, congratulations. And then I remembered that my whole world fell apart. I was in cloud 9. I was extremely happy. I started crying immediately. Yeah, it was probably the best thing that happened in my life so far. I immediately called my parents. They started crying. They were so proud. I remember them saying like, finally, our son after university has a paying job. That's the place where he deserves after all of this work and all of these Olympiads. They were extremely proud of me. After the call, because I was staying in a dorm room, I went to all of my friends, I knocked on their doors, I gave them the news and I said, yo, tonight we have a party, everything's on me. Let's celebrate this. We all gathered in my dorm room, we were like 10 people, we had drinks, and then later on we went to a club, and the whole night I remember being so happy and thinking about my future in Berlin. So after 7 months, my job officially started. I remember in the beginning it was pretty challenging for me because I had much more responsibility than what I was used to at the other companies that I worked in the past. But it was also extremely exciting because I was working on 2 new front-end components which actually got into production. They were published on an official Amazon webpage and real customers were using them. When they got published, I remember being so proud of myself. I actually spent an entire hour on that official webpage playing around with my components, testing them, quote unquote. And I remember sending the link to all of my friends, yo, check it out, this is actually my work on an official Amazon webpage. My time working there was amazing. I left the company 3 years ago, but I learned a lot, I worked with some amazing people, and I made a lot of money. Since then, I built a company with my partner Mircea, who also worked for top companies like Facebook, Adobe, Ubisoft, and 2 New York City startups. We built a program where we actually help people learn how to write quality code using the Lego blocks technique, solve almost every coding question during an interview using the Master Key Trio, and prove important soft skills and make yourself stand out during the interview using the Captain's Command technique. To help them land jobs at their dream main companies, we actually got students like Narcis, who got into Google, Connor, who actually had no tech background and got into Vanguard, Bogdan, who got into Amazon just like myself, and a lot of other students who landed jobs at big companies. So if you're serious about landing your dream job at a main company, I highly recommend you to check our Tech Giant Incubator program. We'll leave a link in the description of this video. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Follow me on Instagram and make sure to DM me if you have any questions or if you just want to tell me how great I am. I also love that. I always love interacting with you guys. That's it for today. See you in the next video.